you search for humic acid on Amazon, you're getting like 500 results, all sorts of things, granular humic acids through ones that are definitely been liquefied in the jug. If I'm sourcing this and I'm a newbie, I'm looking at this. My first thought is, what's the difference? There's tons of them here. They all have, crazy logos and all sorts of jargon associated with them. Having worked in the industry, being on the board of the industry that promotes these substances, how do you, as a consumer, differentiate between quality so you know what you're getting?
So the answer is much more complicated on the fulvic side than the humic side. And we'll get into that in detail if you want. But
Sure. Yeah. Let's take the humate side first.
the humic side, I'll give you an example. So we sell a humic acid called Liquid 6. You can see it there on Amazon. And the Liquid 6, that same product, I split the sample into four different samples and I sent it to four different labs. Now, there's actually multiple tests out there for humic substances. So if I was a new consumer saying, okay, I want to learn about this, the biggest problem you're going to run into is there's no standardization in testing. And when you buy a bag of nitrogen fertilizer, that nitrogen fertilizer has a standard across all 50 states. With humic substances, that isn't the case yet. So that split sample that I sent off to four different labs, it came in 14%, 7.5%, 6.5%, and 0%, but 9% fulvic acid. That was the same product. That was one product divided into four different jars and sent off to different labs. That's how broad of a range you can get. So, as if you were in the marketing department of some of these, humic acid companies, and you said, "Look, if we can go with the bigger number, we're going to get more sales." People are going to say, "Well, same dollar per. This one's $5, this one's $5, and this one's 6%, this one's 12%. I'm going to buy the 12% because I'm getting twice as much active ingredient." And it could simply be that they're using a different test method, same product. So that's the biggest misrepresentation. Now, the Human Product Trade Association has gone through and developed a standard. It says the HPTA test method certified seal. It's kind of a diamond shaped seal, and it's green. What it does is it tells the consumer when you flip over that bag, you see that seal, and all of a sudden you don't have to be a humic acid test method specialist. You can just look at the bag and say, it's got the seal. There we go. Because the problem in some of these tests is like ash content, for example. Some tests do not remove the ash. So when you acidify a humic solution and you go to weigh it and measure it, those suspended clays that are in there come with it. And so when you analyze it, those suspended clays get measured with the humic value. When you subtract the ash, those suspended clays are then removed and you get a true humic value. That's what the HPTA test does. So it puts everybody on the even playing field and removes some of those impurities that were being measured as a humic and fulvic acid. So from a consumer standpoint, to directly answer your question, look for the seal. That's the number one thing you can do is look and say, this one's a HPTA test method seal. You can go to the HPTA certification website, scroll down the list, you'll see a list of manufacturers and who are certified. That's the quickest and easiest way to do it. Now, this certification program is just barely being launched. So you're not going to see that many products being out there. But as this becomes more of a thing and more adoption, because this was just barely released, you're going to see more and more of these seals out there, and then just look for the seal. That's going to be the number one thing a consumer can do to inform themselves.
Okay, let's come back to the fulvic acid part in a minute. So I'm not going to say the brand here, but here's one popular, and it says naturally occurring, unadulterated, oxidized lignite occurring 50% total humic acids, crushed, screened, and graded to particle size of 1 to 3 millimeters. When you hear something like that, does that seem normal?
For me, yeah. But crushed and screened, it's just a raw material that's been crushed and screened, and your SGN size is a measurement in millimeters. So an SGN for a golf course might be like, fairways 150 to 250. So that's 1.5 millimeter to 2.5 millimeter. So yeah, that's a normal industry product.
But if it says something like 50% total humic acids, that's normal? Like, what's the other 50%?
Right. So the 50% could be other organic acids that don't test as humic. So it could be human. The things that's the problem is you're not measuring all of the active ingredients there. And I had a regulator once ask me, Russ, are you throwing the baby out with the bathwater here? And the answer is maybe. We don't know the active ingredient. If you went to the International Humic Substance Society meeting, it's going on right now in Chile. And if you said, we know exactly what humic acid is, we know exactly what's our active ingredient, oh, that room would just laugh. And they would, because you have you got these categories of organic acids that we're just barely figuring out what they do and how to measure them. So, yeah, that 50%, it just gives you an idea that this should be a credible product that has a certain amount of material in there that is beneficial. The other 50% could be organic acids, it could be clays, it could be minerals. It's just not measured as humic acid.
And you're involved in the industry pretty deeply. Do you have a sense of how trustworthy it is? Like, are most brands on the up and up, would you say? I mean, you're not going to know everyone, I get it, but
For the longest time, and when we started as a founding member back in 2010, I hate to say it, but there was some snake oil salesmen out there. That anything that was black was a humic substance. The problem is still persisting in the fulvic acid industry. So the problem with the fulvic acid industry is the test, and we're working on fixing that. But right now, the test is only looking for specific markers because these organic acids are hard to identify, right? Um, the best example I can give you of the problem is this. Imagine I had two glasses in front of me. They were both full of, one was full of grape juice, one was full of wine. And I told you these products are exactly the same. They both come from grapes. They're red. These are the exact same products. And if you had a drink of one and then the other, and you're expecting wine and you got grape juice, you'd be like, this is completely different. There's the process of fermentation where the microbes convert those sugars to alcohols is meaningful to the wine drinker. The same thing is true in the fulvic acid industry. A lot of these inputs are being sold as fulvic acid because they trick the test. So you're seeing corn steep liquor, lignosulfonates, soybean extracts. There's even some paper pulping wastes that are being sold as fulvic acid. And they've not gone through that microbial degradation. And that microbial process, just like the fermentation process of making wine, makes that product different.